Welcome to New York Got Game.
Another edition of New York Got Game. Dexter Henry here. We have to do a special edition this week because WNBA Finals are about to start. The Liberty are in it. We know who they're going to play now. It is going to be the Minnesota Lynx. It should be a fantastic series, so we have to preview this series. There's so much to talk about, and to talk about all this, joining me is the great writer who covers the Liberty for Winsidr. My good friend Candace Pedraza joins me now. Ace, what's going on?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You excited for the series? Because I am.
Oof. Yes, very much so. I'm excited to get into it.
All right, let's get into it. Okay, so we know who's playing now because the Lynx, they defeated the Sun Game 5 on Tuesday night. They get to the WNBA Finals. Once you knew it was going to be the Lynx, what were your initial thoughts on this matchup, Ace? What do you think about this matchup? You know, you said you're excited for it. So what do you think about this matchup and how it's going to go down?
Yeah, I was really excited for this matchup because I feel like, well, first of all, these are the two best teams in the WNBA. So it's awesome to have a matchup between the 1 and 2 in the league. It's sort of like how everything is supposed to fall into place. So that's really exciting. From another perspective, my first thought seeing them blowing out the Sun was the length that Minnesota has contends super, super well against a smaller team like Connecticut. And I'm very curious to see how they utilize that length against the Liberty. In the regular season, we saw them be able to switch a lot of their defenders around and really cause a lot of trouble for New York as they were trying to get into rhythm, especially with Sabrina Ionescu, who's a little bit of a smaller guard. But they were able to sort of counteract that throughout the rest of the season by inserting Leonie Fajvic into the starting lineup. So I'm just really curious to see how they attack her specifically, how they keep defending Sabrina in the backcourt. And of course, I am especially excited for the matchup between Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier. I think that's going to be like a chess match of a matchup in the front court. And I'm just really excited to see how they make each other better on the floor throughout this entire series.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that for sure. And I'm really excited for all those matchups because I think it's a really, as you said, fantastic chess match between these two teams. It's the two teams with the best record in the regular season this year. I would argue, two deepest teams as well, Ace. And, you know, you could also say two most talented teams. I mean, maybe you wanted to put the Aces there, but I think they have the depth, and I love the depth on both of these squads here. But if you look at the regular season, right, Liberty, they lost to the Lynx 3 out of 4 times. That's if you include the Commissioner's Cup. You and I were there for that Commissioner's Cup loss. What contributed to the Liberty struggles against the Lynx that we saw during the regular season?
I think just the turnovers that Minnesota was able to generate, the fact that they were able to out-rebound the Liberty often, despite the fact that Minnesota actually wasn't that much better of a rebounding team than the New York Liberty during the regular season. And then also, again, their ability to exploit the matchup with Sabrina Ionescu in their backcourt, that really threw a wrench in how New York was able to defend both Napheesa Collier and also their really lethal three-point shooting in Alana Smith, Bridget Carlton, and just lethal shooting in general from Courtney Williams, who, again, I have never seen miss a mid-range shot. And so just their inability to get their defense settled because Minnesota was throwing so many different looks at them. And then at the flip side, Minnesota's ability to really kind of throw off Sabrina Ionescu and her pick and roll actions with Jonquel Jones and Breanna Stewart, that really helped them to be able to generate a ton of turnovers. And so New York is really just going to have to speed things up in this series against Minnesota, because if watching last night showed me anything, is the fact that once you have the ball and you're stopped, especially in the paint against Minnesota, they will exploit that and they will generate a turnover off of you. So just limiting those turnovers will be key for them.
All right, got to limit those turnovers. We've seen that doom the Liberty multiple times this season. When we talk about this Lynx team, Ace, the defense, fantastic. Second in the league in defense. That's if you look at it by defensive rating this past season. What do the Liberty have to do to attack this Minnesota defense? Because this is a Minnesota defense that didn't allow the Liberty to score more than 80 points in any of their contests this season. So what do the Liberty have to do to attack this Minnesota defense effectively?
Just move the ball. That's going to be really key. And I think that's for both teams, is just trying to move the ball. Both of these teams were atop of the league in assists on scores throughout the season and just assists by the team. And so just being able to get a lot of ball movement going, not get too stagnant. 'Cause again, that's how that leads to a lot of turnovers that Minnesota is able to generate. Just being able to just keep things in motion pretty constantly switching, maybe getting Minnesota's defenders tired will be really key to trying to slow them down defensively and maybe get them into some foul trouble, especially if they're trying to stop New York from getting too much going in the paint, especially.
You just mentioned getting things going in the paint, because I'm glad you went there, because I think that could be a big key for the Liberty here if they're going to win this series. When you think about them getting things going in the paint, you're thinking about Jonquel Jones, right? And in the Commissioner's Cup game, not the Commissioner's Cup game, the matchup on July 2nd, that was the one. She had 21 points, 12 boards in the one win that the Liberty had over Minnesota. So she was key in that one. How important is it for JJ to be on top of her game in this series and apply that pressure down low, put pressure on the Minnesota defense, maybe get some of their ladies into foul trouble? How important is JJ for you in this series?
She's crucial. Just her ability to both grab boards against Nafisa Collier, who is just so good at boxing everyone out, and also really good at drawing a lot of fouls off of her defenders in the paint. She is going to be really crucial, especially in the paint, when they're able to switch maybe Breanna Stewart off of Collier and try to get JJ onto her instead. But she's also going to be crucial in her defense around the perimeter. I feel like they're probably going to have her guarding Alana Smith a lot. And so being able to prevent her from shooting too much threes while also trying to help Breanna Stewart in the paint as much as possible is going to mean that JJ has to be on top of her game defensively. In terms of her scoring, I'm never really worried about her being able to score in the paint, but I think it'll be really big if she can also stretch the floor. We saw her hitting threes in that Aces series with ease, and so that was able to get a lot going for Breanna Stewart as well towards the end of that series. So if she's able to also hit her threes more consistently, it'll clear up everything for the Liberty's offense.
Yeah, if she can stretch the floor, that'll be very helpful. She has to worry on the other end about defending outside on the perimeter as well, too, as you mentioned. Now, through this playoffs, and I'll include JJ in this too, we've seen the Liberty's top stars, right? You know, JJ's a star. We've got Breanna Stewart. We've got Sabrina Ionescu. Their top stars have played very, very well. But you know the thing, Ace, when it comes to this series, it's always going to be a player that maybe you didn't expect, or a lesser player, role player, shall we say. Who's that non-star for the Liberty that you think has to be an X factor in this series? Who's that person you got your eye on?
Oh gosh, the Liberty are an interesting case because, you know, with their recent move from Leonie Fivich from the bench to the starting lineup, the one person that got shuffled out into the second unit was Courtney Vandersloot. And Courtney Vandersloot is a star. She's a legend of the game. She's a champion. The list goes on. So I feel weird putting her on that list of, you know, not stars or just someone not in that big three, of course, that's going to be able to contribute to this team for this series. But I think her success is going to be paramount, especially if she is going to help lead a second unit that's going up against Minnesota's second unit that is so tough. Her ability to also maybe get one up on Natisha Heidemann is going to be huge, who's an excellent defender. So if Courtney Vandersloot is able to get anything going against her, that'll be a really good sign for the Liberty to be able to at least rest their starters for a little bit and also just be able to keep scoring, especially as the rest of their second unit has been struggling. You know, Kennedy Burke, Kayla Thornton, Niara Sablé, they've not been able to get going offensively. So if Courtney Vandersloot can help them there, that'll be huge for this series.
You know what? I love that you mentioned her because I don't know how you felt about this. I loved when they put Fivich in the starting lineup. I thought it was good. Add a little bit more length, also scoring. It was also a better lineup for them to close with. But I have been really impressed with how Courtney Vandersloot has adjusted to going to the bench. And kind of as you mentioned there, she stabilized that bench. And, you know, you think they're going to need some others to step up on that bench. Can KT get her shot back? Can Kennedy Burke continue to give some good minutes, which she has defensively? So it's not just about offense. She has given good minutes defensively, but it will be intriguing to see if somebody else can step up off the bench. Sloot has been really solid, so it'll be very interesting to see. Wanted to ask you about this with the Liberty because, look, this is the story with the Liberty. The team has never won a WNBA title. They are looking for the first in their franchise's history. So two-part question here, Ace. One, is there pressure on them to win this, right? They're coming in as the betting favorites. They are the number one overall seed in this playoff. So is there the pressure for them to win this? And is this team built to withstand that pressure? What do you say to that?
Yeah, there's a ton of pressure. Obviously, this being their second consecutive trip to the finals. So, the pressure to just finally get it done is huge. Another part of that is the fact that they've already taken care of, so to speak, the one team that I feel like a lot of folks felt like could be in their way, which was the Las Vegas Aces, and they handled them pretty effectively and pretty dominantly through most of that series. And so just the fact that they've taken care of the Aces, the fact that they've been here before as recently as last season, and this is a very cohesive, consistent unit, and they've all played with one another for, not all, but most have played with one another since last year into this year. They've developed that chemistry. They know what it would take to get over that hump, to get to a championship. I feel like they are the most prepared that they could possibly be versus this Minnesota unit, which obviously is led by Cheryl Reeve, who's won multiple championships with Minnesota already. I think that New York definitely feels the pressure, but they are very, very ready for the moment.
All right. I think they're ready for the moment. Remember, Liberty, they are going for their first. Minnesota, they're going for their 5th title in franchise history. So it's going to be interesting to see. Pressure's there. We'll see if the Liberty can get it done. A couple more things, because you mentioned all the talent that Minnesota has. And we saw in the last series against the Sun, 2 of the best defensive teams in the league going head-to-head. Napheesa Collier, tremendous. We know what she can do. Courtney Williams as well. You talked about her never missing a mid-range shot, but she's even been knocking things down from downtown. She's been knocking down the three-pointer as well, too. So that's also really interesting with her, too. We didn't even mention Kayla McBride and how tremendous she is. They have so much talent on this team, so much depth. So in your eyes, who's the player that the Liberty absolutely have to? You can't stop anybody, but they have to absolutely slow down, Ace. Who do they have to slow down here?
I'm going to have to go with the head of the snake of the entire offense, and that would be Napheesa Collier. Of course, being able to stop her will stop the effectiveness of the rest of Minnesota's backcourt, and especially Courtney Williams, who does an excellent job of exploiting her matchups to get the ball to Napheesa in the paint. And so I think just being able to at least get in front of Napheesa Collier in the paint, box her out a bit better, will help, especially with limiting her impact on those second chance points, because eventually Minnesota will have to miss, I assume. And that goes for Courtney Williams as well. So when she's missing her shots, or any one of the other excellent perimeter shooters on Minnesota is missing their shots, limiting the amount of rebounds and second chance points or even fouls that Napheesa Collier is able to draw will be key. So they really have to hone in on defending her, especially, like, make her beat you, essentially.
Yeah, Fee's been tremendous through these playoffs. We know she can fill it up. One of the best players in the league. And I'm really intrigued in the times we'll see her. As you said, her and Breanna Stewart go head-to-head. That is a fantastic matchup. We are in for a treat with that one. We also got to talk about Sabrina Ionescu. She's been fantastic. She's had a strong playoff run here. She's been really good. Obviously, you're going to want to see her continue that here in the finals. A bit of a rough finals last year against the Aces. Does she have to be the best backcourt player in this series in order for the Liberty to win? Does Sab have to play at that level, Ace?
I believe so, especially when you're facing off with Courtney Williams in the backcourt as well. You have to be the best person in the backcourt in the entire series. She can obviously match Courtney Williams's offensive output, but I am curious to see if she's able to maintain her really solid defensive season into this series against Courtney Williams as well. So just outside of the fact that we know that Sabrina Ionescu can light it up from 3, she also has her mid-range going, and she can also finish at the rim pretty easily as of late. Her ability to stop Courtney Williams will be equally as important, because you don't want to go bucket for bucket in this series with this team. They're going to have to get some stops eventually. And it starts with Sabrina being the best guard on both ends of the floor for either of these teams. So absolutely, it's going to be huge for her to be able to especially stop Courtney Williams.
All right, we're going to see what she can do defensively too, because I think a lot of times people will think about Sab, they're thinking about the threes. She's been a fantastic 3-level scorer this season, but defensively, she's going to be tested too, because we know that the Lynx are going to bring it defensively as well. So when you look at this matchup, Ace, between the Lynx and the Liberty, every time you look at a series, you're looking at, okay, who has the edge here? Where do the Liberty have the edge in your eyes in this series? What is it for you that you say, okay, that's it. That puts them a little bit ahead of Minnesota, or is there not an edge that you see for them?
It was really difficult for me to think about this question because it doesn't feel like they've had any edge in a lot of their games.
Losing 3 out of 4, right? It doesn't feel like they've had it. No, I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the edge ultimately will come down to rebounding. Their ability to clean the glass is going to be big. Like I mentioned, limiting the amount of second chance scoring opportunities that Nafisa Collier gets in this series will be big. And that's something that Connecticut was really struggling with, especially last night. In that elimination game, they just could not keep her off the boards. So between Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones, I think the emphasis, aside from obviously stopping Nafisa Collier, which better, easier said than done, is just being able to stop her from at least grabbing her own rebounds. And also the Liberty, this was a stat that I read apparently in a piece from Nikias Duncan in Bleacher Report earlier this morning. The Liberty are, I believe, 7-3 when Jonquel Jones is able to record a double-double in the postseason between last year and this year, which is a pretty good margin of victory. And so if she's able to really secure boards, especially in addition to Brianna Stewart, the Liberty have a really solid chance of winning their games against Minnesota despite how good they are.
Yeah, so rebounding, I love that as an edge. Jonquel ties into what we talked about before. I think for me also, the one thing is how well can the Liberty starting unit right now play against Minnesota's starting unit. Liberty starting unit through these playoffs has been fantastic. They have a great net rating. I'm forgetting the exact number on it. I know it's a fantastic net rating. I believe it's over plus 17 per 100 possessions. So they've been fantastic there. This is, and I give Sandy Brondello a lot of credit. She held on to this lineup. She did not bring it out through the playoffs. I thought it was the right thing. It made the team longer. It made them tougher to defend. And I think one of the things, Ace, you can let me know how you feel about this too, that could be an X factor here is Minnesota hasn't really seen much of this lineup, right? Face to face, because it wasn't like the Liberty pulled this out a bunch during the regular season. And I think that could be a huge X factor here. How much do you think, this is an extra question I'm throwing for you, but how much do you think that starting lineup, their best 5 against Minnesota's best 5, the Liberty's best 5 against Minnesota's best 5, is really going to matter here in the fact that the Lynx haven't seen this new look starting lineup before?
Yeah, it'll be huge for New York, especially just because their second unit hasn't been gelling very well on offense this postseason. As I mentioned, Kayla Thornton's been struggling a bit. Kennedy Berg on offense has been struggling a bit. It feels like Courtney Vandersloot is probably the one bench player that has been really solid throughout this postseason. So, thinking about these starting lineups, it's going to be really crucial for New York to win their minutes against Minnesota with their starting unit in, but win them big. They're going to have to get up pretty big on Minnesota, and that doesn't feel likely just because Minnesota is going to be the best defensive team that they've faced in the postseason so far. And so that'll be really big. But I do think, like you said, Leonie Fibich being in the lineup really shakes things up for New York in a good way. It forces Minnesota to think twice about who they're switching, especially when they have the ball in their hands, because I think before they were really easily able to exploit the size of that Courtney Vandersloot, Sabrina Ionescu backcourt, or even the KT Sabrina Ionescu backcourt, which I think is what they saw in the Commissioner's Cup game, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
and
correct.
So I think Courtney was coming off the bench. She was returning to play. And so this will be very fresh for Minnesota. I'm not totally buying into them just being like totally thrown off or anything like that by Leonie Fibich being inserted into this starting lineup, because they're coached by Cheryl Reeves. So I'm sure they'll be prepared by tomorrow. But it throws an interesting question to their defense. Are we willing to switch as much as we were before? Or are we going to defend more on ball and see what we could pressure New York into doing? And maybe we could pressure them into some turnovers that'll lead to some easy points for us. So, yeah.
I think that's the thing. They're talented enough, like you said. They are well coached by Cheryl Reeve, even though they have not seen this look in person. I think they will make the adjustments. I'm just intrigued to see, will they be as switch heavy, as you said, as we saw them before? I don't think they can be, because Fibich can make them pay, and I think that's a huge difference there for them. But Cheryl Reeve is going to have some tricks up her sleeve. She's not going to be scared of the moment. And I don't think the players are either. They have a very talented defensive team. So it's just about the adjustments as matters in all of these series. All right. Last thing for me. Here we go. Prediction time, Ace. We got to get a prediction. When you look at this series, give me your prediction. Are you going with the Lynx? Are you going with the Liberty? And how many games? What's your prediction and why? Who is going to win the 2024 WNBA Finals?
I can't plead the fifth, right?
No, come on. We can't do that. You got to give an answer. You can't, don't run from the prediction. Don't do that.
No, I can't. All right. Oh gosh, I was toying back and forth with this, but I really do feel like this is the Liberty's year to finally win a championship. I think that their depth, their new size in the starting lineup, I think with the assumption that Jonquel Jones is going to have a big series, just like she did in last year's finals, with the assumption that Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu will keep playing at the high level they've been playing at. And their ability to also get that home court advantage is huge. I like them this year over Minnesota, which is a very wild thing to think about after watching how dominant Minnesota was in these semifinals that they just had with Connecticut. But the fact that Connecticut was able to push it to 5 makes me wonder a couple of things about their ability to really dig deep, and also how they respond to super physical defense, which is what Connecticut played in that critical game 4. I think that's something the Liberty can do. And so that's why I'm leaning Liberty right now. But I will say I feel like this is going to go to 5. I don't see this being an easy at all for New York, but I think they will get it. They'll get it done.
I'm with you. I picked the Liberty all year. I thought they'd be on a mission. I thought they would be focused on getting this done. I think they know they're 3 wins away, but I do not think this is going to be easy. Part of me, just a small part of me, is like, I want to pick the Liberty in 4. But I don't see it. I think you're going to get a split on both. Teams will split on both courts, and I think the Liberty win in 5. I hope to be there in front of a raucous Barclays Center crowd. I'm going to go Liberty in 5. Could I see it happening in 4? Maybe. I know some people will say, that's crazy. Like you said, they lost 3 out of 4 to the Lynx. But I just think the Liberty are going to dig deep here. I think they know this is a chance. They have the best team. They've been hungry for the goal all year. They slayed the proverbial dragon in the Aces, and now they're here. I think they get it. I'm with you in 5. See, I'm glad you didn't run from the prediction, Ace. I'm glad you didn't do that.
Listen, I'm from New York. I'm very wary of
putting the predictions for the New York teams.
I hate picking New York teams when I am from New York, because I feel like I'm like cursing them somehow. But no, I mean, the Liberty have proven multiple times this season, both in the regular season and this postseason, they're the number 1 seed for a reason. They were the best team in the WNBA for a reason. They are just a powerhouse of a team. And the Leonie Fibich switch into the starting lineup has made them even better, if that was even possible. So I feel confident heading into this series for that pick. But I agree with you. I think depending on how, maybe that extra day of rest looks for the Liberty, it could go for. I don't know.
That's a good point that we didn't talk about. I wonder how much of that is a factor here for the Liberty that they have not played since Sunday. And the Lynx, that just played obviously on Tuesday, now have a quick turnaround. They have to travel to New York. I wonder how much of that is a factor, and I wonder if the Liberty are able to get out to a 2-0 lead because of that. Does that then change things about how people feel? I do not think they're going to sweep. I just want to be very clear about that. I don't think anybody's getting swept here. I don't see that happening. But listen, hey, I'm sure Liberty fans will be happy with a sweep, 3 games and done. But I think a nice WNBA Finals, 5 games, I think we're in for that as a treat. We'll see. I do wonder how much of the rest will play a factor in the Liberty having the home court advantage, not having to travel. The Liberty have only played 1 road game through this postseason. So, they're very well rested. They've been home. They've been in New York. They've been in Brooklyn, and they're well rested. And then game 1 starts on Thursday night. Should be a fun one, 8 p.m. tip at the Barclays Center. I will be in the building. Candace Pedraza, she will be covering Liberty throughout the finals for Winsidr. Ace, this was fun, man. We got to preview the series, the finals. We both picked New York. Hopefully we did not curse them. I hope not. I don't think we did, but
I don't think so.
it was fun. I'm excited because there's so much going on in New York sports right now. There's so much to watch. There's so much to do. I know you've been watching a lot. I'm tired. Hanging in there. It's good. But there you go. That is Candace Pedraza. She picked the Liberty in 5. I'm rocking with her on that too. I'm picking the Liberty in 5 as well. I want to thank everybody who worked on this preview behind the scenes. My producers, Emma Kate Austin and Brian Rokowski. My editor, Catherine Cooper. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Candace, for joining me on this preview. And we will see everybody next time on New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.